Good morning. This is Al Vickery at AL Waters Capital in Braintree, Massachusetts, and this is your morning call for Thursday, June 8th, 2011. And we're basically just moving ahead with a very slow but weak trend in stock markets. The Dow gave up about 21 points yesterday, and this marks the sixth consecutive session that stocks have moved lower, albeit most days it's been very slight. But the fact is, investors are concerned about the sovereign debt issues in Europe, anemic economic growth pretty much everywhere. Jobless claims went higher yesterday, and we do have the new numbers coming in today. So futures are up just slightly. Economists hope for a slight improvement in those jobless claims numbers. And we already had an announcement from the Bank of England, which held steady on its policy. Jean-Claude Trichet of the European Central Bank has his moment in the spotlight later on. No one's expecting anything really to change now, but most are expecting to see some hints that the ECB will be ready to raise interest rates for a second time in 3 months next month in July. So everybody will be watching for key words in his speech and some hints, although it's unlikely he'll come right out and give any real guidance. Otherwise, everything else is in a pretty tight range. Investors really just don't know where to go. The dollar has been trending mostly lower. It's had a couple of days here and there where it moved higher. It's flat this morning. Gold is weakening a little bit again today, but again has also been in a tight range. Most traders are just adjusting on the fly, reacting to daily news, and we get these small movements in almost everything but stocks, which have been small but lower each day. We're also hearing a lot of talk about the nuclear energy industry and the future of uranium. Uh, Market prices for uranium have, in fact, been slipping by a small fraction every few days or so. It wasn't too long ago we were up at about $70, and there are a few indicators out there, but we're roughly at $56, $57 right now. And this all started trending lower, of course, after the incident and crisis, really, in Japan at the Fukushima power plant. So from that, we got a lot of public sentiment that bumped into the realities of the market, and we've, in our opinion, really seen two different extremes. In certain countries that aren't really focused, frankly, on the public sentiment, in places like China and India, there may have been some commentary immediately after the crisis, but essentially no policy direction was changed. And these are two countries that really will be moving ahead in the coming years with building new power plants. Yesterday we reported on Australia, which is interesting because Australian mining companies are major players in the uranium industry, in the mining industry for uranium. And yet the country itself uh, has not had any reactors producing electricity for them. But, excuse me, now Australia will be building its first reactor. They're planning on it being up and running maybe about 10 years from now, so this not really changing the market much, but it's an indication that nuclear power is far from a dead issue. The biggest factor to the downside really has been Germany, and this has been all a political move, frankly. Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, had initially planned and promoted and supported the idea of uh, basically re-upping the reactors in Germany, extending their lifespan, as opposed to moving away from nuclear energy and into focuses on solar and wind power and things like that. Now, of course, in the wake of the crisis in Japan, she has flip flopped and decided that Germany will move away from nuclear power over the course of the next 10 years. And that received some support in Parliament. But we have to remember, number one, this is very much a political game. Angela Merkel would face some steep opposition. She is aware of the fact that regional elections went against her party, and she had two choices: to stand pat on her original direction, or basically try to develop a coalition with some of the other parties, including the Green Party, and basically save her job. And this is true for other political figures throughout Germany. There's really just kind of a game going on. Now, is this important to the uranium industry? Well, certainly 10 to 15 years from now, if you remove Germany from the picture, this is a incredible demand issue. But of course, by then, we have equal number of reactors likely to be coming on board. So it's kind of a wash, but we don't actually think this is going to happen or happen as quickly as the media would like you to believe, or some people would like you to believe, because one issue that's going to come up, and somebody in Germany is going to jump on this fact, and that is, where does Germany get its power from that point on, say from 11, 12 years out? About 25 to 28% of its power right now comes from nuclear. They cannot bring some of these other alternatives online all that quickly, cannot produce the scale that they can with nuclear, so the option basically is coal. And that's not probably going to sit too well. The coal industry has been struggling with its image, of course. There's clean coal technology and so on and so forth, but you will see some politicians jumping on board and pointing out that Germany can't afford to completely reverse its direction. By giving up nuclear energy, it's likely to embrace the use of fossil fuels more often, to a larger scale. So that will not be acceptable. And we're not done with this issue yet in Germany, I'm sure. All around, though, most of the industry analysts think that uranium is doing just fine. The market has been thin. And it's not a regular commodity. These are long-term contracts. The price doesn't necessarily change daily. It could be 3 days, 5 days, or a week before you see any price movement, regardless of external factors. So, very slow-moving market. Most of the experts in the industry figure that we are still on track to return to $70, $80, because we do have kind of a supply and demand issue over the long run, and none of that is, quite frankly, going to change anytime soon. So that's our call on uranium. Things still look good for the mining companies involved in that. Otherwise, the stock market as a whole certainly has some rough road ahead, and we've believed this was coming for quite a while. Anyways, there's a adjustment long overdue in the stock market, and frankly in the economy as well. So this will be an interesting couple of days as the markets adjust. We'll keep a close eye on it for you, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Enjoy the day and happy trading.